September 25, 1066, a day that marked the dramatic end of an era. On the fields of Stamford Bridge, England's King Harald II faced one of history's most legendary warriors, Harald Hardrada of Norway. This was no ordinary skirmish. It was the bloody conclusion of the Viking Age, an epoch that had reshaped Europe for centuries. The Viking era and England's struggles. The Vikings, seafarers from Scandinavia, had been a formidable force in Europe since the late 8th century. Their raids on monasteries like Lindisfarne struck terror across England. By the 11th century, the Viking Age was at its height, but it was also nearing its twilight. In the decades leading to 1066, Viking influence in England waned. King Knut the Great had ruled both England and Denmark, but after his death, English kings regained control. However, Norse ambition lingered, culminating in the invasion led by Harald Hardrada, one of the most feared warriors of his time. 2 kings, 1 throne. Harald Hardrada, also known as Hard Ruler, was a seasoned Viking warrior and king of Norway. He claimed the English throne, arguing it was his by an agreement between earlier rulers. Supporting him was Tostig, the exiled brother of England's King Harald II. Meanwhile, King Harald II had his own challenges. Earlier in 1066, he had claimed the throne after the death of Edward the Confessor, but his rule was contested not just by Hardrada, but also by Duke William of Normandy. Harold's strength would soon be tested in a brutal campaign. A nation under siege. September 1066. Harald Hardrada's invasion began with a show of force. Arriving with over 300 ships, his army swept through northern England, targeting the city of York. 5 days before the Battle of Stamford Bridge, Hardrada secured a decisive victory at the Battle of Fulford, leaving the region defenseless. York surrendered, and the Vikings demanded hostages and supplies, confident that they now controlled the north. Meanwhile, King Harald II, far to the south, received word of the Viking threat. Though his kingdom faced the looming challenge of another invasion from Duke William of Normandy, Harald made a bold decision. He would confront Hardrada first. Gathering his forces, Harald embarked on an extraordinary march. In just 4 days, Harald and his army covered nearly 190 miles, a feat of both endurance and determination. The rapid pace surprised even his own men, but Harald's resolve inspired them to push forward. By September 24th, they had reached York, catching the Vikings completely off guard. Unaware of the English army's approach, the Vikings rested at Stamford Bridge, expecting negotiations. Many of Hardrada's men had left their armor behind, confident that their earlier victory at Fulford had secured their position. But Harald II was ready to strike. His forced march gave him the element of surprise, and his army was prepared for battle. The English had turned the tide in just days, and the stage was now set for a confrontation that would change history. The Clash of Kings. On September 25th, 1066, the Vikings, confident after their victory at Fulford, were unprepared for battle. Many had left their armor on their ships, expecting negotiations. But as they rested near Stamford Bridge, Harold's army descended upon them. The battle began with chaos. Legend tells of a lone Viking warrior holding the bridge against the English, buying precious time for Hardrada's forces to regroup. But the English eventually overwhelmed him, crossing the bridge to confront the main Viking army. Hardrada, known for his fearlessness, led his troops into the fray. However, the English, motivated by their king's leadership and determination, fought ferociously. Hardrada fell to an arrow, and Tostig, fighting alongside him, was also killed. The end of the Viking Age. The Vikings suffered a devastating defeat. Of the 300 ships that brought Hardrada's army, only 24 were needed to carry the survivors back to Norway. For England, it was a hard-won victory, but there was no time to celebrate. Just 3 days later, Harald learned that Duke William had landed on England's southern coast. Without rest, Harald marched his army south to face another invasion. Less than 3 weeks later, he would meet his end at the Battle of Hastings, forever altering English history. Legends born in battle. One of the most enduring stories from the Battle of Stamford Bridge is the tale of the lone Viking who stood against Harald's forces on the bridge. Accounts suggest that this warrior single-handedly delayed the English advance for hours, wielding an axe with devastating force. Some say he killed over 40 men before he was finally defeated by an English soldier who floated under the bridge and thrust a spear upward. Whether fact or myth, this tale immortalized the Viking spirit, unyielding even in the face of defeat. Similarly, Harald Hardrada's courage on the battlefield reinforced his reputation as one of the greatest warriors of his time. His final stand, though ultimately fatal, became a symbol of Viking bravery and resilience. A pyrrhic victory for England. Though Harald II triumphed, the cost of victory was staggering. His army, exhausted and depleted from the rapid march and the brutal battle, was far from prepared for what lay ahead. The Vikings, too, bore the cost. Though their spirit and bravery were undeniable, this battle marked the decline of Norse influence in England and Europe. For the survivors, it was a harsh reminder of the fleeting nature of conquest, tactics, and the element of surprise. One of the key factors in Harald II's victory was his brilliant use of speed and strategy. By covering nearly 190 miles in just 4 days, Harald achieved what seemed impossible. This forced march not only allowed him to arrive earlier than the Vikings expected, but also gave him the element of surprise. The Norwegians were caught off guard, many of them unarmed and relaxing by the Derwent River. While the Vikings were formidable warriors, their overconfidence and lack of preparation became their downfall. Harald's tactics at Stamford Bridge are often overshadowed by his later defeat at Hastings, but they highlight his skill as a military commander. It was a victory won as much by strategy as by courage. The Battle of Stamford Bridge was not just a military engagement, it symbolized the end of the Viking Age. Though the Vikings had left an indelible mark on England, their power was decisively broken on that fateful September day. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more epic history content.